Assalamu alaikum. I am in a dream world and I'm going to visit that nice lady who told us amazing stories about Nabi Sulaiman. Oh, here she is now. My dreams come true. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. How nice to see you here, fishy. Oh, thank you. You know, you had promised that you're going to tell us about the wonderful, amazing stories about Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. And I've brought all my friends today. Wow, you sure have. I see the frog and I see the beetle. Yeah, beetle's brother, teddy bear, a unicorn. I see the penguin. Wow, you've brought all your friends. Yeah, because I figured everyone wants to know about how Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam could understand the animal kingdom. Yes, do you remember what a great king Nabi Sulaiman was? That he could talk to the animals, he could direct the winds, he could make his entire empire fly in the air. He was a great king who had power over the land, the entire world, and he was able to understand the language of even the ants and the birds and the fish, and he was also able to have power over copper and iron, and he ruled an army made up of animals, tigers, snakes, lions, human beings, the jinn, the shayateen. He had everything at his disposal. Subhanallah, what a king. And you wanted to know about the hoopoe bird. Yeah, the hudhud. Tell me what happened there, because I really want to know about this bird. Well, the hudhud is a very special bird. Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam used the hudhud because it gave him the ability to find water anywhere in the desert even. Wow, how? The hudhud had X-ray vision, could see through the ground, and could see things as if they're opaque. Basically, he could see things as if they didn't exist. He could see right through them. And birds in themselves are really amazing. Do you know, Shark? Yeah, birds. I see them flying up in the sky. I'm like, whoa, dude, how do you fly? Lucky. I'm sure the birds are looking down at you and saying, how do you swim? Never thought of it like that. Yeah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us all talents, you know. But you know, birds, they have their own language. Did you know that? Yeah, I can hear them chirping away, sending tweets. Yep, they can say tweety things, very tweet things. Got that. You're so punny. I try. But they have their voices that they use in a very specialized manner. Have you seen people who try to mimic bird calls? Yeah, sometimes there are contests people do, eh? They try to copy. Who can do the Woody Woodpecker though? Man. Well, the cartoon one. Oh, you're good. I try, but can't do it, you know. So anyway, the birds, they have this special way of talking to each other. They all have different languages. They have that's a miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ayatullah right there. The signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That birds can make all these unusual sounds and they can communicate. And do you know that they use a frequency such as the UVA wavelength? What, sister? I don't understand any of that. Well, have you ever seen people use cell phones? Yeah, even at the beach. I'm like swimming around, looking, and everyone's like, I'll call you later. I mean, like, what? You're at the beach. Enjoy yourself. People are on their mobiles, their cell phones. What kind of world is this world coming to? I know. But cell phones are amazing because they use a certain wavelength. And people who have cell phones, data plans, they have computers, they use Wi-Fi. What? Whose wife? No, Wi-Fi. It's a special frequency. It uses an ability to communicate using signals in the air. That's why we can make a phone call, we can send a text. You know, birds, they can hear sounds that are beyond our range of hearing. Like dogs, right? Dogs can hear like high frequencies, and some people use whistles, like special whistles that only a dog can hear. Yes, dogs can hear things that we can't, and they're also very sensitive to sounds. That's why they can figure out if we've got a burglar or something. And what's amazing is birds all look alike, right? Yeah, they all look alike. It's like, whoa, I can't tell who's who. They all look alike. I'm sure the birds are saying the same thing about the fish, that the fish look all alike. Come on, we all look different. I'm so cool. My teeth are different, my hair, my body. I mean, you know, I work out. Look at all these muscles. What are you talking about? I don't know. We can't see these nuances. So you might look different, but you can tell each other apart, right? Yeah, I know who my sisters are, my brothers are. I know who my uncles and aunts. I mean, there's millions and millions born at one time anyway, but still, I mean, God's given us this talent. Yeah, God has given birds that talent too. They're able to recognize their offspring, their parents, their mates, and they can recognize their voices. So they recognize them through their voices, and they use their language to tell other birds where there's food, where there's a threat, where there's danger. And they're able to quickly change their communication frequencies to show information. So they can sort of, using their Wi-Fi signal, so to speak, communicate with certain birds that they want to access. Whoa, that is phenomenal. Yeah, and bees. Bees can do a special dance that allows other bees to know exactly how far and in which area a certain place has pollen for the bird, for the bee. What? Bees are pretty amazing as well. In fact, there's a whole surah in the Holy Quran dedicated to the bee. Wow. Yeah, it's surah number 16. And what's amazing about birds is that they have powers that we have no idea about. But Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam could understand them. And he used the hudhud to find water so that they could do wudu for the army. Well, one day, he was looking for the hoopoe bird and couldn't find him. And he said, he better have a good reason. Where is he? The hudhud was told that Nabi Sulaiman is really upset because you haven't come back in time. The hudhud came back, the hoopoe bird, and he said, yeah, Nabi Sulaiman, actually on my way to you, when you summoned me, I was on my way to you, I promise. But I met another bird, another hudhud, a hoopoe bird, who told me that, have you seen the Queen of Sheba? Have you seen this queen? Her name is Bilqis, and she is she's a queen unlike another. And I said, I follow Nabi Sulaiman. He's a big king. And the hoopoe bird said, oh, you should check out how famous, amazing, and powerful Bilqis is. Whoa, so the hudhud went to see her? Well, the hudhud did go and see this huge empire and realized that if this woman could own so much of the world, she must be quite an amazing person. But when he came back to Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam and he explained where he was, Nabi Sulaiman said, tell me more. The hudhud said, yeah, O Prophet of Allah, I saw something about this Bilqis that really, really shocked me. What? She had a big palace and jewels and an army and everything, just like Nabi Sulaiman? Well, that, but also the hudhud was very shocked that Bibi Bilqis alayhi salam, Lady Bilqis, was an idol worshipper. Oh no! Yeah, she didn't believe in one God. And this was so shocking to the bird that it blew his mind. And he said, praise be to Allah. How can someone not praise Allah like the way that Allah should be? And he said something which is in the Holy Quran that is so praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have to do a sajda when we hear that particular ayah. Wow. So then what did Nabi Sulaiman do? Nabi Sulaiman said, well, if that's the case and she doesn't believe in God, then I, as a prophet of God, must guide her. And the Hudhud explained that she's under so much protection. Oh Nabi, I will not be able to get near her. Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam gave the Hudhud the idea and said, here's a letter. And he wrote him a beautiful letter and closed it in a very beautiful envelope and said, fly above the throne of Bilqis and then drop the envelope in such a way that by the mercy and the miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it'll end up on her lap. You won't have to go through all the channels to get the letter to her. Ooh, that was a good idea. Yeah, he was a great king. He had great ideas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed him. And when Bibi Bilqis got this letter, she was amazed and she told all her advisors, she said, surely this letter is very honorable. The sixth Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam explains that the honor in this letter was that Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam never began any letter without saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and talking about the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She sees this letter and she says, this letter is asking me to surrender and to accept God, but I really don't know what to do. I need your advice. The chiefs of Bilqis and Sheikh Al-Tusi explains that there were 312 advisors, and the advisor said that whatever you want to do, O great queen, we are willing to follow you. Such a beautiful thing about this queen, that she used the advice of her advisors, even though she was such a powerful queen. She asked them for their opinion, and she said, they are and these 312 advisors that Sheikh Tusi explains, each of them had 1,000 men working for them. So these were very powerful men, and yet they looked at her for her wisdom, for she was a queen with great wisdom. And Bibi Bilqis, what happened was that she said, kings, when they come to a town, they ruin it, and they take the people who are in high status and make them completely low. They always do this, and we've got to get rid of this danger. Let me send him some presents. And this was her way of seeing how greedy Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam could be. For she said, if he's a real prophet and truly a pious man, he's not going to want my presents. And if he wants to take over my land and kill people, then he'll be a greedy king who'll be very impressed with these presents. So she sent Nabi Sulaiman so many presents. And you know what? She made a very interesting casket. And this casket was made of pearls and precious stones, and they were inside the casket. And Bilqis said that the command that she had was that Nabi Sulaiman should be able to open that casket without cutting through it, without using copper or iron, because she realized that he had power over copper and iron. Wow, so this was a riddle, huh? Yeah, and you know what she did? When she gave that riddle, she had no idea that she would see what a great king he was. Because what he did at that time was he used a worm, and he told the worm to make a hole and go in using a thread in its mouth, go in, take the pearl, and pass it on the thread out of the casket. What? Yeah. And Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam was actually quite offended at all the presents that she sent. And he said, what? Will you help me with wealth? I don't need this. Allah has given me better than what He has even given you. No, You think that your presents are going to win me over? Go back, take them back. And now I'm for sure going to come and make sure that you listen to what I want. When Bilqis gets this kind of an answer from Nabi Sulaiman, she decides that she's going to visit him. And she does this as a surprise. She doesn't quite tell him. It is when she's very close to his kingdom that Nabi Sulaiman realizes that she's coming. And that's when he decides that he has to do something really amazing in order to show her that he was the greatest king and a prophet that she should listen to. Whoa! So what did he do? Well, he told all his advisors, and he said to them that I know that Bilqis has a very unique throne, and I want someone to bring that throne to me. And the jinns in the audience said, well, I can bring it for you. I can, bring it for you in a while. And Nabi Sulaiman said, no, I don't have time. I need it right now. And in the Quran it says that one who had the knowledge of the book said, I will bring it to you in the twinkling of an eye. And while the many tafsir explain that this was perhaps Asif-e-Barqiya, there's a beautiful hadith in which somebody, and this is narrated in the Sunni books as well, in many of the tafsir, where somebody asked the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who brought this Queen of Sheba's throne within the twinkling of an eye. And the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam answered, it was Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And he said, O Ali, you helped all the prophets being concealed from view. You were there in the name of Asif, perhaps in the audience, but actually you were Ali, and you were hidden and nobody knew that you were Ali. But O Ali, you helped me in person in my prophethood. You were there for everyone to see the amazing things that you did. And it's so amazing that just like the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked for Imam Ali's help to lift the door of Khaybar, similarly it was Imam Ali alayhi salam who helped lift the throne of Bilqis for Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. You look in the Bible, the Christians explain how Bilqis came to the kingdom of Nabi Sulaiman. She came with a huge entourage of camels, and it says in the book of Kings that she brought spices and gold and precious stones and asked a lot of hard questions. And there is so much written about the stories and the questions she asked and the way she tested him and the things that she saw. And he tested her too. How? Well, he made a whole palace made of glass, and he made the glass floor in such a way that there was water underneath, and there were fish, my friends, my family, my ancestors. Yes, they played a role in impressing Bilqis. For when she saw that glass, it was like one of those aquariums on the ground that you could actually step on, but there's fish underneath. She was for sure thinking that this was a water that she was asked to walk over. And when she lifted her skirt and tried to walk over it, she was amazed to see that this was actually a glass floor. Really, why did Nabi Sulaiman do that? Nabi Sulaiman did that to impress to her that what sometimes is what we assume with our eyes is not as it seems. And she wanted to be given that example with her eyes. She had to see that what she thought was a god was not a god. And that's what Nabi Sulaiman was trying to explain to Bilqis. And so, when all this happened, Bilqis was very impressed. And she spoke to Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, and he explained to her the oneness of God. And this was a queen who used to bow to idols, right? She had huge palaces and temples made in the honor of these idols. But at that point, when she understood that there was only one God, And that the Prophet Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam was telling her which God to believe in, and in believing in the oneness of God. Bilqis, who had done so many sajdas that weren't the correct ones, when she did that one true sajda, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave her and accepted her belief. And you know, that's a great story right there, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to recognize Him. And when we have ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blesses us and He forgives us for our mistakes. Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam and Bilqis joined their empires and together ruled over a kingdom like none other. And that also shows us that when we are blessed and we use these blessings to spread the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all over the world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases the blessings that He gives us and makes us a name that will forever be remembered till the end of time. Wow, that's a great story. You guys, did you like the story? Yeah, we loved it. Oh my God, it was so good. I want to know more. Yeah, I told you it'd be worth it. And now you can go home to your animal friends and your relatives and tell them all about how great our ancestors played a role in the life of Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. Yo, you go animals. Yay, animals rock. We rule. Great. Inshallah. We'll see you again some other day and we'll talk about other prophets, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters, I hope everyone is doing well. If we are ready to learn about Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam, let's have a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali. Last day we spoke about Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, and we said that Imam al-Rida alayhi salam had the title of Alim Ali Muhammad, the scholar of the progeny of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we said that this title was given to him by none other than his father, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, where he was sitting with his children, Imam al-Rida alayhi salam with him as well, i.e. Imam al-Kadhim. And he looks to his children and he says, "O my children, this is the alim of Ali Muhammad, the scholar of Ali Muhammad. So ask him about your religion and memorize what he says and keep it with you. Remember what he says. His words are the words of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and ultimately he is the Imam over you." That's more or less what the Imam is trying to tell them. And we said that the Imam alayhi salam exemplified this in many situations. One situation was when he stood up in front of Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi and those who Al-Ma'mun brought to debate with the Imam from other religions. And the Imam alayhi salam destroyed each and every one of them, not from the Quran, not from the Ahadith, but from their respective literature and scriptures. So he would discuss with the priest from the Bible and would discuss with the rabbi from the Torah. He would talk to the Zoroastrian with the scriptures that he believes in. With the philosopher, he would refer to philosophers that this philosopher respects, and not just respects, has taken from and learned from. And so the Imam alayhi salam showed the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam to be the truth, not by the words of Ahlul Bayt, but by the references that the scriptures of other religions have to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Allah of Islam, the God of Islam, and to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Let's have a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad for Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Today we're going to be talking about Al-Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. And Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam is a special Imam because this Imam became an Imam at a very young age, maybe 8 or 9, if not 7. And also this Imam, it's said, died at a very young age as well. And you see this with some of the later Imams where they died young. For example, Imam al-Jawad, some historians say he died at the age of 23. Historians say that Imam al-Askari alayhi salam died at the age of 27, for example. So you find that the Imams alayhi salam, the later Imams, didn't live too long. Maybe Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam didn't live as long. Maybe he did. But the two that stand out are Imam al-Jawad and Imam al-Askari, dying before the age of 30 according to some narrations or according to some opinions. Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam was the youngest of the Imams alayhi salam to be martyred. But in his life, my brothers and sisters, we find that this young Imam gave us jewels and gems that today, up until today, our ulama benefit from. Where the Imam alayhi salam discusses many ahkam of Hajj and discusses the ahkam of some penalties if a person was to do a crime, the penalty for that crime, and other ahkam as well. Although the Imam alayhi salam didn't live for very long, the contributions that this Imam alayhi salam had to the religion and how this Imam benefited ulama for generations to come is astonishing. Truly astonishing. And it goes to show you and me, my brothers and sisters, youth of our society, how much potential we have. Let me show you an instance of Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam's genius and how he was able to overcome the scholar of his age by the name of Yahya ibn Aktham, although he was a young man. He stood up in front of Yahya ibn Aktham and was able to dismantle Yahya ibn Aktham in front of the crowd of people. One of the people in that crowd was Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi himself, who was responsible for the killing of Imam al-Jawad's father, Imam Rida alayhi salam. Listen what happened, so that you know the potential that you have as youth. That Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam was a young man. You can even say a young boy. And he was able to stand up in front of the scholar of his age, with the Khalifa of the Muslimin beside him, the man who ultimately killed his father, and he was able to dismantle the scholar and all of the claims that he was making. Listen. It said Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi, after killing Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, he came up with another plan. What did he want to do? He wanted to call the son of Imam al-Rida. Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. And he wanted to marry his daughter to Imam al-Jawad. Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi, who just killed Imam al-Rida, wanted to marry his daughter to Imam al-Jawad. Why? You guys have heard the expression, keep your friends close but your enemies closer. Al-Ma'mun saw Imam al-Jawad as a threat. Although the Imam was very young, he saw that this man is going to be a threat to my kingdom. So what am I going to do? I'm going to plant a 24-hour spy in his home that he can't refuse. He can't refuse and he can't refuse or kill this person or have this person punished if he finds out that she is a spy. Although he knows alayhi salam, but it becomes clear and open that she is a spy. Because she's the daughter of who? She's the daughter of the Khalifa. The most he can do is divorce her. But we will force her to be in his home, and we will put pressure on him from within his home. So what did he do? He called Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam from Medina. Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam came down to Al-Ma'mun. Obviously, the Imam didn't want to come to Al-Ma'mun, but he felt pressured or he was forced to come. So Imam al-Jawad came down. When Imam al-Jawad came down, Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi gathered all of his family members. He gathered the high-ranking officials of his nation, of his empire, and they were in the court together. Of the people that were there was a man by the name of Yahya ibn Aktham. Yahya ibn Aktham was a scholar of his age. He was the scholar of the age. And he was the one that many scholars and Ma'mun al-Abbasi himself would refer to. When Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi called upon Imam al-Jawad, he sat him beside him. He made it seem like he's honoring Imam al-Jawad. And he said to the people, he said, anybody that has a question for this young man, stand up and ask him, for he will answer. And so Yahya bin Aktham, he stands up and he asks Al-Ma'mun, do you give me permission to ask Al-Jawad a question? Al-Ma'mun says yes. Imam Al-Jawad alayhi salam, he's sitting and he's listening to Yahya. So Yahya, he begins. He says, ما تقول جعلني فداك في محرم قتل صيدا. He says, what do you say, O Jawad, O Muhammad al-Jawad? What do you say about a person who's in the state of ihram in Hajj? He kills an animal. Very straightforward question. Very straightforward question. Yahya bin Aktham started off easy. So the Imam alayhi salam looks at Yahya and he says to him, قتله في حل أو حرم عالما كان المحرم أم جاهلا قتله عمدا أو خطأ حرا كان المحرم أم عبدا صغيرا كان أم كبيرا مبتدئا بالقتل أم معيدا من ذوات الطير كان الصيد أم من غيرها من صغار الصيد كان أم من كباره مصرا على ما فعل أو نادما في الليل كان قتله للصيد أم نهارا محرما كان بالعمرة إذ قتله أو بالحج كان محرما فتحير يحيى بن أكثر. The Imam alayhi salam took this very straightforward question and said, Yahya, if you're trying to trick me with these questions, listen to the answer that I'm going to give you. Rather, listen to the question, the follow-up questions I'm going to present to you. What are they? He said, number one, قتله في حل أو حرام. Did he kill this animal? Either when he says حل أو حرام that he was muhrim or he was not muhrim, or حل أو حرام could be the place that he killed him. Regardless. عالما كان المحرم أم جاهلا. Was he knowledgeable or was he ignorant of the hukum or of the mawdu' of the situation? قتله عمدا أو خطأ. Was it purpose? Was it purposefully done? Or was it on accident? حرا كان المحرم أم عبدا. Was the person a slave or a free man? صغيرا كان أم كبيرا. Was he an older person or a younger person? مبتدئا بالقتل أم معيدا. Is it the first time he killed or he did it more than once before? Or he did it before? من ذوات الطير كان الصيد أم غيرها. Is it from the birds? This animal that he killed, was it a bird or was it something else? من صغار الصيد أم من كباره. طيب, if it's an animal, is it a big animal or a small animal? مصرا على ما فعل أو نادما. Does he regret what he did or he doesn't care? في الليل كان قتله للصيد أم نهارا. Was it at night or was it in the daytime? محرما كان بالعمرة أو في الحج. Was he doing ihram? Was he in ihram for umrah or hajj? All of these questions the Imam alayhi salam presented back to Yahya. Yahya stands in front of the Imam. He's confused. Yahya himself probably didn't even know that there were so much different branches to this mas'ala, to this issue. When Al-Ma'mun sees Yahya bin Aktham confused, he begins to honor Imam al-Jawad. He begins to show Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam to the people and present them as the one who's going to marry his daughter. He speaks highly of the Imam. Now, why he did that? That's probably for another discussion. But just very quickly, he did that so he can convince his family members that this is the appropriate person to marry his daughter. Because his family members didn't know the plan that Al-Ma'mun had. They thought he actually wanted actually wanted Imam al-Jawad to marry his daughter. They didn't know the plan that Al-Ma'mun had. Regardless, obviously Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi was putting on a show. That's what he was doing, was putting on a show. Jamil, after the marriage ceremony or after a ceremony that they had, Yahya bin Aktham, he looks at the Imam and he says, Ya Muhammad al-Jawad, what's the answer to the questions that you yourself were posing to me? What's the answer? What are the answers, rather? There's more than one answer. What are the answers? So Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam says, نعم إن المحرم إذا قتل صيدا في الحل كان الصيد من ذوات وكان الصيد من ذوات الطير وكان من كبارها فعليه شات. The Imam alayhi salam essentially goes through all of the situations and he says, if it was like this and this and this and this, then he has to pay a penalty of this. For example, He says here, if the person kills the animal, and it was a bird, and it was a big bird, فَعَلَيْهِ شَاتٍ. He has to pay a goat. He has to pay the goat itself. He has to give a goat itself, or maybe there's an alternative that he can give for the goat. Regardless, the Imam alayhi salam pretty much takes the issue and branches it off. If it was like this, this, and this, then this is the hukum. If it was like this, this, and this, then this is the hukum. Rather, if it was like this, this, and that, no, the hukum is something else. And he goes through it. Yahya ibn Aktham was being taught by a 9-year-old, by a 10-year-old. This is Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. The youth of Ahl al-Bayt that was able to tap into the potential that he had and bring that out and present that. That very potential was able to drag down the likes of Yahya ibn Aktham. It was able to confuse the likes of Yahya ibn Aktham. Now you tell me, he's an imam, he's taught by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I tell you, still the Imam alayhi salam is teaching our youth that you have the potential. Don't wait until you're 25 and 30 and 35 and 40 for you to say, now I'm going to become religious. Number one, who said you're going to live that long? There was a brother that I knew, his name was Ali, in Windsor, here. Ali. He died at the age of 22. Family friend. We know him. Who said you're going to live that long? And number two, there's a beautiful hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he says, the one who learns when they are young, it's like you're writing on stone. It's engraved in their identity. Their identity itself screams these words, screams these ideas. Their identity itself is built from these ideas if they learn them when they are young. Similarly, in another hadith, it said, the one who learns the Quran when they are young, the Quran mixes with their blood and with the meat, with the muscles, with their very body. اختلط بلحمه ودمه. It mixes with their blood and flesh. Becomes a part of them. Becomes a part of who they are. And the Imam alayhi salam is telling us that. You have so much potential. Unlock it when you are young. Because when you grow, that potential is not there anymore. The energy is not there anymore. And some of the greatest people in Islamic history and outside of Islamic history were young men. Hisham ibn al-Hakam. Hisham ibn al-Hakam was a companion of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. A close companion. And Imam al-Sadiq would send Hisham ibn al-Hakam, the genius teenager, the genius teenager. He would send him and tell him, debate this person and defend the Sharia, defend the religion, not his elder scholars. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam had many students. Not this person that had a white beard and he knows a masbaha. This teenager, Hisham ibn al-Hakam. Don't go far. You want other than Islamic figures? Alexander the Great. Whether he was a polytheist or a monotheist, no problem. Alexander the Great began his conquest at 20 and died at the age of 30. He conquered from Greece all the way to India and got to Egypt. Maybe a fifth of the landmass of the world at the time was under the control of Alexander the Great. He's 25, 26. You have the potential. Don't sell yourself short. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
How do we get original ideas? How can parents raise more creative children? How can leaders foster creativity and innovation in their organizations? These are just some of the questions that we'll look at in the book Originals by Adam Grant. It's a book that's been recommended by several people of influence in numerous different industries and fields, such as Richard Branson, as well as the likes of Malcolm Gladwell and also Peter Thiel. In fact, Richard Branson says that he has built hundreds of businesses by convincing other people to look at the world differently. And he says that this book shows you just how to do that. Or Peter Thiel, who says we're lucky to have a guide like Adam Grant to show us how to think differently. Or Malcolm Gladwell, who's highly acclaimed and said that this book is as if you are sitting across the table with Adam Grant and being shown how to think in a different, more creative way. This and so many other people have said that this book is something that you definitely want to consider in terms of how to think more creatively yourself and also to foster more creativity in your families as well as in your organizations. It will teach you questions and answer questions relating to how can entrepreneurs get funding by actually telling their investors or potential investors the shortcomings of their product or service and the truth about it. How can calculated procrastination actually lead to more success? And also how surrounding yourself with people who disagree with you can actually lead to greater and greater success. These are just some of the insights that we'll glean. Having said that, let's dive right in. Major idea number 1. Originality is key for a fulfilling career. Many times in the drudgery of jobs that do not allow for your creativity and originality to flourish, one of the best things that you can do for yourself and your career is to be original. In fact, the researchers cite studies, Adam Grant cites studies from researchers such as the economist Michael Hausman, where he actually looked at the relationship between job candidates and the server that they use, or rather the web browser that they use, and the effect on that on their job and how they actually performed. Those people who accepted the default web browser, such as Internet Explorer from Microsoft, versus people who didn't accept the normal one and actually picked and downloaded a different one, such as Chrome. They found that the people who downloaded a different one, the non-conformists, they actually performed better at their job, they actually were more problem-solving oriented, and they actually came with more original solutions to problems. They actually lasted 15% longer in their jobs and their positions as well. And this dynamic can be seen throughout our world. This is actually how nonconformists change the dynamics and push organizations forward by not accepting the default and not accepting the norms that are just given to them. But this requires courage, and it requires determination, and it requires overcoming fear. Yet if you're able to do those, you will get much further than you would without doing that. Major idea number 2, between quality and quantity of ideas, which is more important? So which one is more important? Do you want to create more quality ideas or more quantity ideas? What if I told you that the answer to this question is not intuitive and it may not be what you think? Consider the story of Newton and his apple. We're told in the story that Newton is sitting along and he sees an apple fall from a tree, and this inspired him to seemingly instantaneously come up with the theory of gravity. In reality, ideas rarely emerge like this. And in the answering the question of quality over quantity, the answer may very well be that both are important. In fact, the answer may be that quantity of ideas leads to quality of ideas. And the author presents research to back this up, that creative people are actually those who create and produce more ideas, where other people typically do not. Take the example of Picasso. Picasso, who is renowned for a handful of his works throughout the globe. But were these the only things that Picasso produced? The author Adam Grant cites that, in fact, Picasso produced many other things. He produced many rugs, many ceramics, many sculptures, and thousands of drawings. Of all of his portfolio, only a few things became world-class and known throughout times. This is the reality that many creative people, many original thinkers, many nonconformists don't themselves know what are going to be those things that are known forever and those things that stand the test of time. Consider the research of Simonton, who argued that geniuses themselves don't know which of their creations will be critically acclaimed and accepted by the world. Beethoven. In fact, it's known that Beethoven used to have disagreements with critics who saw the things that he produced differently than he saw them themselves. In fact, 33% of the conversations and the letters between Beethoven and critics actually showed that there was disagreement between Beethoven and the critics on what they believed were the truly quality items. So in the relationship between quantity of ideas and quality of ideas, the answer is that quantity of ideas leads to more quality ideas. The next major idea number 3, is that calculated procrastination can actually work creative wonders for you. Consider Martin Luther King Jr., who was scheduled to give his very famous speech, which has now become known as the I Have a Dream speech. He only began writing that speech the night before, we're told, and even when he wrote it, at the end, the most famous part of it was actually given extemporaneously or off the cuff. He may have perhaps given the speech a month earlier in some context in a different city, but he was not following the script that he had planned for that day. And it wasn't until someone from the crowd yelled, "Tell them about the dream," that he actually began to give that speech. Adam Grant cites research that actually indicates that calculated procrastination can actually lead us to think more creatively. So when Dr. King, for example, began to practice or prepare the night before and not fully prepare, he left a window open in his mind to actually produce a more creative solution that he would not have done otherwise had he wrote the entire speech down well beforehand and not left any room for inspiration to strike and ingenuity to strike. Consider Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci, in terms of creating the Mona Lisa, he was someone who procrastinated heavily. And it's said that when he was actually doing this, we're told that with respect to Leonardo da Vinci, that he started in 1503 to do his work. And when he started in 1503, he left the Mona Lisa for several years and didn't touch it. And it wasn't until 1519, 16 years later, that he actually completed his work. This calculated procrastination opened the door for him to create some phenomenal work, and actually researchers argue that it helped him to create the more timeless work. Of course, procrastination may not always be the best solution, and you need to be very careful about when you use it, and you want to use it in a calculated manner. Yet if you do it the right way, in a small case of scenarios and a calculated way, you can go very far. Major idea number 4. Admitting your weaknesses may actually get you more success than you imagine. Being honest and telling people about the shortcomings of a project may actually be a great way to build trust and rapport and actually buy-in. Take the example of the startup Babbel, which the founders of the company actually approached investors and told them at the beginning that these are the shortcomings of our project. The front end is dominated by celebrity articles and the back end has these shortcomings. This honesty led to buy-in amongst the investors, and they actually got the investment capital, to the extent that eventually the company was actually acquired by Disney. By being honest and upfront, you can actually get more buy-in from your respective audience. Major idea number 5. Make radical ideas familiar. And the way to do this is get your ideas out there more often than not. Adam Grant actually shares research that the more you expose individuals to ideas, the more likely they are to receive them, the more likely that they are to be receptive to them. And a way that you can do this is actually to share your ideas in a familiar context with your audience. Take the example of the movie Lion King in the 90s. Initially, when the idea or the concept of the movie was presented to Disney executives, many of them were reluctant. They said this is too dark and this is too tragic of a movie, and it's something that may not be suited for children and families. But Michael Eisner at Disney decided to reframe this in a more familiar context, the movie. So he said, how can I relate this movie to the audience, the executives, in a way that they'll understand? He related Lion King to King Lear and Hamlet by Shakespeare. This allowed the people to understand where he was coming from, where was the idea coming from, and they ultimately got buy-in. Lion King in 1994 was the highest grossing movie of the year, and it won 2 Oscar awards, 2 Academy Awards, and became a critically acclaimed movie. But that wouldn't have happened until it was framed in a familiar context to get buy-in. If you relate this to yourself and how you work with your teams and collaborators, you may get much, much further. Another way in which you can actually foster originality and ingenuity in your organization is to actually surround yourself with people who disagree. Surrounding yourself with people who disagree and do not see things the same way as you can actually allow you to get more innovative solutions that you would not get otherwise. Consider the research that's shared by Adam Grant on throwing in a minority, dissenting, disagreeing, nonconformist opinion into the mix when people are in a conversation in an organization. Adam Grant shares that there's a phenomenon called groupthink that occurs in organizations and in team meetings. And what happens is everyone wants to conform to the group's idea. And in that process, some of the best, most innovative, original ideas get missed out. One solution to this problem is to actually approach the problem by injecting a nonconformist original idea to shift up the mix, to fight groupthink. This level of disagreement can actually lead to further new original ideas that you would not get otherwise. Take the example of Ben Coleman, who was leading a project, CRIC, for the US government. He was tasked with creating a team that was innovative in nature, and he created one of the most innovative teams. And the way that he did this was by seeking out junior officers who had a record of challenging authority and challenging other people. This led them and the team to create much more innovative ideas. A final consideration that I wanted to share with you is that of actually perhaps disguising your idea in order to get buy-in. This is a non-intuitive, counterintuitive way of actually getting buy-in for your ideas. Take the example of the company Ubeam. The founder of the company actually wanted to create wireless charging solutions, which to us sound very normal today, but at the time were groundbreaking and not considered the norm. When they approached their professors to say that I want to create a charging station or charging device which is wireless, they all said this is not possible, this is a waste of time. Whereas they realized that they wouldn't get buy-in in this frame, so they reframed it and disguised the idea in a different way and said that I want to create a transducer. Can you help me? When this term was used, instead, everyone was receptive to help. But the ultimate end was the same, to create a wireless charging station and unit. And that idea became successful, it became Ubeam, and they have countless and many projects and many different products which are wireless charging solutions. This happened by disguising the original idea when there was pushback into a different frame and context in order to get more buy-in. This has just been a summary of some of the major ideas from Originals by Adam Grant. There's so much more in this book, and I invite you to take a look. One final way in which you can think originally and actually adopt a nonconformist manner is to consider seeking out problems over solutions. And rather than trying to only find the solution, you seek out problems and think about them in a different way in order to get to new, novel solutions that other people may not have thought of. So in summary and all in all, think different, think original, procrastinate in a calculated way from time to time, create more ideas so that you get more quality ideas, and at times get buy-in and surround yourself with people who disagree with you. I hope these insights have been valuable to you, and I hope you'll consider picking up the book to get even more to share it with your children as well as your teams at work. All the best to you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد فقد قال الله عز وجل في كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون صدق الله العلي العظيم. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fasting during the holy month of Ramadan has been made compulsory for all of us. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that it is a difficult task for some of us. And in this verse that I have recited, while He prescribes the obligation of fasting during the holy month of Ramadan, He has said that He doesn't desire hardship for us. And as such, he has allowed certain groups of people to be excused from fasting, though they don't have to fast. The first category of people are the elderly, and within the elderly there are two categories. There are those who just cannot fast. It's impossible for them to fast. For them, there is no fidya to pay and there's no qada to do later. And then there are those who can do so. It is within their ability, but they will feel it excessively difficult. For such elderly people, the fast is excused, but they will have to pay the fidya which is around 750 grams of staple food, such as grains, wheat, flour, lentils, rice. You need to give 750 grams of such food to a poor person. And however, there is no qada for such people. This is the elderly. Then we get to those with sickness that causes thirst. Anyone is ill with a sickness that induces thirst. Then again, there are two subcategories. Those who can't, and there's no fidya and no qada for them, and those who can but with excessive difficulty. Fidya will have to be paid 750 grams of staple food to a poor person, and there is no qada for such a person. So for the elderly and for the sick who have a sickness which causes thirst, there is no qada to do in any case. But is fidya necessary or not? Such people will need to look at the situation and see whether it is completely an outright impossibility for them, or whether they can but with an excessive amount of difficulty. For those who can, for those elderly people who might be very old, but they feel that it is still very easy for them, alhamdulillah, then they are not excused from fasting. Then we get to category number 2, which is pregnant women towards the end of their pregnancy. So when a woman is pregnant and she's in her 8th or 9th month, it is harmful for the baby to fast, or is harmful for her to fast. Then she is excused from fasting, but the fidya will have to be paid for every fast that is missed, and also the qada will also be need to be done later on when she can. And the fourth category are those women who are breastfeeding infants, and they also have a very low quantity of milk. So when such a woman fasts, it would be harmful to her or to the infant. So in such a situation, again, the fidya is wajib for every fast that is missed, and also the qada needs to be done later on, the qada fast. But in this scenario, only when breastfeeding the child is the only option that is available. If there are other options, then the woman will not be excused from fasting. And in any of these cases, or any other cases, if fasting will cause harm which is excessively difficult to bear, such a person will be excused from fasting as well. Rather, if the harm is so extreme and it is forbidden to subject oneself to such a harm, it's at that level, not only is a person excused from fasting, a person is not to fast. Fasting becomes haram for such a person in any situation, whether it's the situations that I have mentioned, for the categories that I've mentioned, or beyond that, in any scenario. If the harm that is there for a person that is fasting is to the level that it becomes haram to subject oneself to such harm. And then we get to the scenario where a person is sick or ill. And what we have to understand is that one of the conditions for the validity of a person's fast is that fasting will not harm him in his illness. And the fasting will cause harm if one of the three things mentioned in the books hold true. By either making the illness more severe, number one, by either making the illness more severe, or by delaying the healing process, or by causing more pain and suffering. If the fast does any of these three, then the fast is not valid. And this is with the condition that this the illness is becoming more severe, or the delaying is happening in his healing, or the pain is being caused by the fasting to a degree that conventionally it's not borne. If the fasting is inducing something like that, in that situation the fast is not accepted. The fast is invalid. If someone still wants to fast and then he fasts, he abstains from food and drink, and he causes himself such harm, such a fast is not accepted in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And moreover, such a person will need to undertake the qada later on next year, before the coming of next year. So we need to understand that this is the validity of the fast hangs upon the fact that the fast will not induce such harm when we are ill. The harm from fasting doesn't need to be known with certainty either. A probability to the level that it causes considerable rational fear is sufficient. If even if there's fear of it, it's rational and it's considerable, then that fast becomes invalid. Okay. But this doesn't include someone who's simply feeling weak. Okay, even very weak. If someone is feeling very weak and tired, this isn't sufficient. This is unless the weakness is so excessive that it is no longer usually borne by people. This is way too, the fast is affecting me way too much. And normally people don't bear such an extent of weakness without doing something to rectify that situation. Or if it's such a weakness that he becomes incapacitated to work and earn a living, and there's no other way that I can earn a living, there's no other way that I can obtain the things that I need to maintain myself, to maintain those who are dependent upon me. Or if a person becomes excessively thirsty, the fasting causes him excessive thirst, making him unable to continue working. So in such circumstances, as an obligatory precaution, one must stick to eating and drinking only in necessary amounts and abstain from anything more. Okay, so they need to just eat and drink something a bit just to keep him going until Maghrib time, and in such portions, the minimal portions that he needs to continue working and without suffering in that way. Now, the question is often asked that if the doctor says that fasting would make my illness worsen, what should I do? Now, if the doctor's advice brings about at least a rational fear that your illness will grow worse, or the illness will delay in healing, or it will cause more pain, and then one must abide by the guidance given by the doctor. If it's something that I am believing and it is causing that fear. However, if the doctor says this and I don't believe him for rational reasons, if there is a reason there, then that fast will not be invalid for me. I will need to undertake it. And the opposite is true. If the doctor says that your fast will not harm you, you can fast, but still you have a rational fear in your mind that you shouldn't be fasting, things will get bad in relation to your illness, then that is something that you need to balance and see which is greater. Is my fear greater, or is my doctor telling me that the fast will not cause any harm? Do I believe that more? So if the fear overrides anything that is gained from the doctor's advice, then a person mustn't fast. But if the advice of the doctor is giving me more satisfaction and it overrides my fear, then I will need to abide by what the doctor says. And finally, the same situation, exactly the same situation is for the person who is not ill, but he fears that out of fasting he will become ill. If there is a rational fear, not someone who is paranoid, not something that is irrational, but if there is a rational fear that if a person fasts, he will become ill, he will become sick or ill or catch a disease or something, then such a person will not be held accountable for not fasting. Rather, his fasting will be unlawful and will not be accepted in the eyes of the Sharia. So these are a few rules and laws in relation to those who are excused from fasting and those who shouldn't be fasting because of illness or the fear of illness. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us obedient and to keep us steadfast on His path. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.